to all. Today we all are gathered here on this virtual platform media to learn something interesting. Hereby, I welcome you all principals, HODs and the participants and all the other dignitaries today in the today's session about concept of testing in DevOps. It is a very interesting and cutting edge topic. So without any delay, I would like to welcome our today's expert, Ms. Hia Jain, on behalf of Parul Polytechnic Institute and Parul University. Welcome, ma'am. To give a quick introduction about her, I would like to say that she is a software development engineer in test at Diebold Nixdorf. She has done her Bachelor of Engineering in the field of computer science from Gujarat University. She is also certified by tech giants like Microsoft, Capgemini, Tyson, and IKM. So, without any further delay, let's start today's session. Over to you, ma'am. The stage is all yours.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll share my screen. Hope you all are able to see my screen.
Yes, ma'am. The screen is visible.
Okay. So that was a generous introduction, Rudra. Thank you so much for that. So I'll start with some of the introduction that I personally think should be given. So I'm a batch of 2010 from Parul itself, and that time it was GTU under GTU. So that's why Gujarat University, but it's a part of Parul now. Um, so when I was your age, I didn't have any idea that what I want to do, what I really enjoyed working on. I didn't have any idea career specific. So in this session, I won't tell you something that you should have a vision or you should have a plan in your mind that you want to work on specific career path. So I just wanted to tell you by this PPT, I'm not just telling you my experience up till now, but the general requirement that is a must for IT industry for sure. So if I tell you that when I started searching for jobs after my completion of college, I almost gave interviews in like 30 companies, and I got rejected in many of those. And that was a very hard time for me because for a student who has got a bronze medal from your college and still you're not able to get any job, that becomes very frustrating. And everybody keeps talking like you are the topper, you are the topper, how come you are not getting any job. The skills that I was missing, or the help that I needed at that time, hope I'm able to give it to you right now. So when you get out of this college bubble, you'll understand that um, in today's technologies and world growing so fast, you should have at least some basic knowledge of skills that are currently used in outer world, not in your textbooks but in current scenarios or real time scenarios. So um, if I tell you that when I got my first job selection, it was L&T Infotech, and I was given um, a place of a designation saying software engineer. So I thought now I'll crack it. I'll become a very good developer, or I'll do something very best what I can do. When I got into the industry and I started working, or I joined the project, what I was given Excel reporting. So when you're given a you know explanation, or uh, you have a planning in mind, that time you think you'll be working directly as a developer, but no, that is not the case. So when you want to start your career, you should be open to any work that is coming to you. So when I got the Excel work, so what my level of thinking was, initially I was uh, just copy pasting some of the data in Excel sheets, and from that Excel sheet data I needed to create a pivot table on those, and my manager used to represent those pivot tables and those data to other delivery heads or management people. So this I had to do every week. Okay, so every week it took 7 hours to create that one report that I was required to build up. So it happened 2 week, 3 week, 4 week. I was continuously doing the same work, copy pasting, copy pasting. So I thought this is not I wanted to do. I wanted to do something that is more challenging, or I should be able to learn more things for that. But I didn't get it. So what my manager told is, you should have a vision that says you want to optimize something, the thing you are working right now. You should have a vision that you want to make that work easier, um, make this work that anybody could generate this report. So he or she who is working on this report should not be required to learn something to generate this report. Can you do that for us? So I brainstormed and looked into some of the Excel related Google searching I did, and at the end, what I got is I created a script. That script would fetch the data in my first sheet, and then I put up some formulas in different columns, and in that from that columns I fetched that data and created pivot tables at the same time. And when I got that pivot tables, I was able to generate charts at the same real time. So at the end of all my scripting, so what I did in all this scripting was VB scripting. I learned VB scripting, and whatever work I was doing manually, like copy pasting from some other area and pasting it into the Excel, and then generating charts from that work of 7 hours, I reduced it to 1 second. And how did I do that? I learned VB script. I learned that if at all I am removing the dependency of having the knowledge to create all these pivot tables and charts and everything, I just have to click one button that run this report, and it would generate the new, it would fetch the new data and generate the new pivot tables and charts, and it would save it in the separate Excel sheet so that it is presentable. So I did that. So what I did here is I reduced what was the time frame to complete the same task. I reduced the dependency of any resource or any worker who needs to do the same thing the whole day, but it was just one click now. Okay, so when I completed that, and my manager appreciated, he understood that I was able to do more than just reporting work. I was able to script, I was able to develop, I was able to think that way. So he gave me another project which was more of an ad hoc, that it was just a 6 month work, and it required um, testing of and there was a monthly testing, patch testing that they said. So there were almost 65 websites at that time in that project. I was working under Time Warner project. They had 65 websites, and every month they used to have 5 teams work on those 65 web applications to test if they're working or not, like sanity testing is in each page is opening or not, each link is working or not, in that ways. So he gave me, in the next project that he gave me was this, that if you could do something about this, then we can think of getting you a permanent work for automation. So I got interested into that. So what I did at that time, I got introduced to Selenium. Selenium is automation testing, right? So I researched about it. How can I interact with browsers? How can I interact with different elements in the website? How can I simulate the user experience. So I worked on this POC for 7 to 8 months, and the work that required 5 people, 5 hours of work. So in total, 25 hours for one resource. Okay, so I worked on it. I created scripts for that, Selenium scripts for that, using just IDE. So it was just a run of one script, which was associating all the websites and opening all the websites, going through all the links in it, and running through all the steps that were given to me. So I replicated that into scripts. And what I achieved is, my manager and my delivery heads, they were able to justify in front of Time Warner client, that they have reduced 5 resource work and 25 hours of work into just 10 minutes of work. And how did we achieve that? By automating it. By all this story, I don't want to say that I have achieved so much. I just want to tell you that currently, so every requirements that we have, every time we get a problem statement against you, you have to think like, how can I make it more easier? How can I make it more automatable, um, less manual, so it can be completed early and with effectiveness and efficiently, like all the things, all the aspects are achieved but in lesser time. So that is all what we want to discuss on DevOps. Like, DevOps is all about streamlining all these activities, any activity that is related to software development, streamlining those and delivering any of the products easily, effectively, and faster. So that is how the DevOps um, culture came into place. Okay, so when we talk about latest technologies, latest products, so we as a customer say that next time I want this feature in my mobile or that feature in my mobile, but that would take a year. So so as a customer, you are saying I want this. So when you say I want this, that becomes a requirement, right? So requirement or problem statements for the people like us who are developing or who are testing that product, it becomes a problem statement. So when a user says that this is the requirement, that becomes um, a problem statement for IT people, and they start working on resolution for that problem. And in that resolution, we come across software development. So every feature or every new enhancement that we come across, that is all about new requirements. Every time a new requirement comes into place, we have software development for it, right? Now, I'll give you a simple example. So you and your class is sitting in a laboratory, computer lab, and your professor comes and he gives a problem statement that he wants all of you guys to um, create a program to swap two variables. It's a very simple program. You just have to swap the values of two certain variables. Okay, so every computer that is allocated has two people in it, and you decide amongst yourself that one would be developing, the other would be testing. Okay, now when the developer person wants to start with his work, what will he do? First thing he will do is he will ask your client. Now your professor becomes your client who has given you a requirement. So you go to them and you ask them what actually is required for you to code, the scope, how could you achieve that. So he just tells, no, I don't have uh, any specific requirements. I just want the two numbers swapped, nothing else. Well, okay, then you start working. So the one person who is responsible for development, he starts working. He analyzes and he generates a code, and he's ready with the code. During this time, the person who is responsible for testing, he didn't do anything. He or she didn't do anything. He was just sitting right there. And once you have completed your building of program, then he comes to you that I have completed my code. Now you can test. So the other person now says, okay, let me go and ask my client again that what are the requirements, and then I'll start testing. So you say, okay. Now this person goes to the client and asks um, that as per his analysis, there are two possible ways. The number can be swiped with two variables or else three variables. So which approach are you looking for? So that time you're when you are giving a number of scenarios to the client, then your client understands, yes, if this is the case, then I would, if I am using two variables, I won't be able to utilize this function later. But if I'm using three variables, so the one variable which is the temporary variable, I can utilize that value in my further enhancements if I require. So what you do is you can check your code with three variable thing. Okay, so the tester has scenarios which developer was not knowing, and he has developed it. He has developed the whole code. Okay, now when you see the code and you start testing, you get the bug. Tester gets the bug. Then what happens is the process of deployment, like the process of getting your program reported to your client or your professor gets delayed. You tell your developer that you have missed this feature which requires three variables, not two variables. So he has reported you back after his testing. Now you have to work upon it again. Now you work upon it again, you again give the tester, and then he checks everything. Yes, the swap function is working, it's using third variable, and he does that. He is satisfied with that. Then you call upon your professor, your client, that yes, now this works fine. And when that is done, then you achieve client's uh, satisfaction. Like if he is able to identify the product that you have generated is efficient. So that's how a developer and a tester can help achieve more products that have cost effectiveness, security, product quality. And by that, if you have the testing in place at the right time, you'll be saving a lots of time. And how can you do that? You can do that by having a separate life cycle. So every development has a life cycle. Okay, so first is you're having a requirement gathering phase. Requirement gathering phase is nothing but you're connecting with your client, and they are coming up with a certain scenarios or requirements or acceptance criteria that they want. That for example, they want a website that says they need 5 pages, one as about, one as sorry um, one is about, one is input, one is login page, one is logout page, and everything that comes under requirement category. Then you analyze it. In analysis, what you do is you identify what would be beneficial for you and your company to use the tools that you're going to implement on. Okay, so you understand that, okay, I'll develop my code in ASP.NET, or I'll develop my code in using AngularJS or React or any languages that are used for designing purpose and everything. So in an analysis phase, you build the logic against the application or the requirement that has been given to you. You build logic, you build a set of scenarios that you would be documenting, that would be utilized later while you're designing the solution. right? So you do documentation here in requirement gathering and analysis phase. So once that is completed, okay, so all the developers will come together and start designing it. Okay, you will implement the code, implement the logic, and when that is being documented, then you have the final implementation. What is implementation all about? um, so in designing phase, what you do is you um, created a prototype. You just created web pages, .html pages, for example. You are said that there is a form page that says it would gather all the data from user and then it would put back in database. So that part of integration of your UI with the backend, that amalgamation is done in implementation. Okay, at this phase, at this implementation stage, you are completed with your development work. As a developer, you have completed your development work. Now there comes testing. Testing is for other entity, that is other users, other resources in the company. Then comes the STLC. Oh, sorry. Then comes the STLC. What is STLC? It's a testing life cycle, which is a part of development life cycle. Okay. Are you able to see my screen right now?
Yes,
SDLC
ma'am. We
and
are still on
SDLC.
concept of testing in DevOps by Hiya Jain.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll check that again. Can you see the other screens now?
No, ma'am. It's still on the first slide.
Why is that happening?
Ma'am, maybe if you share your whole screen.
Okay, I'll try that. Hmm. किया यहीं से किया. Can you see this other screen now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Now we can see it.
Okay, fine. Okay, so I was on the software development life cycle and software testing life cycle. Okay, I'll go again. Sorry. So first two phases are requirement gathering and analysis, where you document everything and that is provided by client. And in testing, in designing phase, you develop the prototypes, you develop UI level work, or separate UI, DB, and everything is separated. In implementation phase, you integrate everything, every aspect of the program as a whole or application as a whole, that comes under implementation. And when the development phase is completed, you do the testing for it before giving it to the client in the deployment phase. Okay, now when you say testing requires a separate level of life cycle: requirement analysis, test planning, test case development, test environments setup, then you have execution, and then last is of course the final test report, that is closure report from testing team. Once you have the final test report, closure report from the testing team, then you deploy it to any environment, whether it is lower environment or production environment directly. So in traditional phases, traditional life cycles that were utilized, or you can say these are the process, the linear processes that were utilized by development teams from very long time. Now, since the current ages of continuing the work very on a very fast pace, we need to have all the phases from testing as well as development together. So, as I've mentioned here, we should have requirement gathering as well as requirement analysis from STLC together. What does that mean is, so every time you have a meeting with client, you will have your developer and tester together, so that each and every aspect of the application, or every person has a different perspective, so that can be utilized. And if you have a requirement done very specifically and very clarity, with all the clarities, there are less chances to have bugs, right? So that can be achieved using DevOps technologies, or you say agile technologies. So what in agile technology happens is, you have all these phases working um, together with as a team. So whenever you have a client meeting for requirement gathering, both the teams would be there and both the teams would analyze. Once the requirement is given to the client, to the developers and testers and all the team, then what testing team would do is, they would design separate documents. Like in development phase, you have separate documentation which is only related to development scope. But in the level in the concepts of testing, you have level of scenarios. You have from high level to low level scenarios. You have uh, different criterias of users, like for example, we have multiple users, like we have admin users, you have just login log out, the person who is only responsible for read only accesses, so that is a different user. So for every user, you'll have different set of tests for your application. So what a tester will do is, they'll document everything. They'll document the budget for the product as well there, because when you have a budget for the product, then you understand which of the tools and technologies you can utilize while developing your application, as well as the test scripts for that. Okay, so that is done in analysis and test planning phase. Then when there is a designing phase, that time you sit with the developer and you see how in what way they are trying to create their scripts. So according to that, you create your test cases so that they are in sync. Okay, so you have created everything, documented everything till here. In test case development phase, till here you have documented everything. Now that there comes the in environment setup, what would you do is, you would finally understand what kind of tools you would be using for automating it, or whether the application would be helpful in using Visual Studio or Eclipse, or should I be using UI test frameworks separately? Should I be using Selenium for it? Should I be using only DB testing setups? So that is done in test environment setup. Once that is done, then developer is in implementation phase. They'll be informing you, yes, the development is completed. Now you can run your test scripts and do the manual work and everything. So there comes test execution phase. Okay, test execution phase um, changes from like 2 weeks to uh, 2 months or 1 month. So that time is gone when a, a product was delivered to testing team in a month or 2 month. Now it's like in every 1 week or 2 week you need to have a new development done, otherwise you won't be considered latest. So that is a main thing that is required in test execution. So in test execution, if you see, we have certain number of testing. um, okay, so when we are talking about working together, working parallelly, developer and tester, so that means you are having continuous development. With continuous development you have continuous integration. What do you mean by continuous integration here? So it's like uh, there always a large number of developers and a large number of testers working in a team. So if there's one application and four people are working on the same application, they would be given one pages each to work upon, one functionality to work upon. Now they'll be merging their code before deployment. Merging all their code and before deployment is called continuous integration. So every time you have a new code in your local machine, like in your PC that you're working on locally, you upload it to some location, that is a remote location where everybody would be uploading, and they will be merging all the code, and on that basis it would be proceeded for testing purpose. Okay, so for that we have number of testings included. If you go from down, first is the unit testing. Okay, what is unit testing is, it is directly related to your codes. Okay, so um so in our example where there was the example of swap function, so what unit testing would do, it they would have one test case, a unit test for input variables like a or b taking input. That is one unit test. Second unit test would be if they have been shifted or they have been allocated to certain temporary variables, so that allocation is the second unit test. Third allocation is you giving the output that yes, the numbers have been swapped. So that is unit testing. Then comes your white box testing. What is white box testing? Test when you know that this functionality would have this number of uh, lines of code, and that would be helpful in the later stage. So that code, the line of code, is checked in white box testing. Okay, then comes functional testing. So in functionalist testing is nothing different than manual testing. Okay, when you talk about manual testing, they are referring to the application. So for example, you have created an application which has 5 pages. So how do you test that application? You'll log into that page, you'll navigate to each and every page, and check if the inputs that you're giving, are they getting saved, or are you getting any validation message that is saying that this has been saved. So that is all called functional testing. Then comes regression testing. So unit testing, white box testing, functional testing, these three are low level. Okay, low level testing. Then regression testing, automation testing, and acceptance testing are middle level testing. Regression testing is if you are checking if you have introduced okay, so if you have a form which gets your data and you click save, then you have a message coming up saying your data has been up, updated successfully or saved successfully. So you have got an enhancement that says the text that you're showing that this user has been saved, that text should be in red color, nothing else. or green color, like that. So there's only one change in the whole process. So what you will do is you will update that in the code, and you will give it to developers. So they will do the functional testing on it, but they'll be regressing it. They'll do the regression test saying that, is it affecting the existing code, is it affecting all the application, or the level of uh, intricacy or severity of that new feature, is it affecting my product. So that is done in regression testing. In automated testing, what do we do is, so like there's a scenario for this saving your user. So for that you need to require login into the application first, and then you create your user and save, click on save button. Okay, so what you can do is, for every time you need to log in, right? So you will create a script for this scenario. So I do not need to require manually enter into the system and then do it. I know that this would be repeated again and again for multiple of my user creations. So try to automate that functionality and create a test script out of it. Okay, so that is automation testing. Then comes acceptance testing. Acceptance testing is generally done by business people. What are business people is? Uh, they are the people that are associated with your client, which have uh, two set of variables saying this is expected and this is what actually is happening. So they'll be given a test scenario from us. We'll be providing them that what is expected as per the client requirement, and they'll test it out, and then they'll fill out that form saying this was expected and this is what actually is happening. And whatever that report comes, that report of acceptance testing would be reported to your client that this is the progress till now. Likewise, then comes exploratory testing. Now exploratory testing is the work that I explained previously, that I was referring to, the sanity work, that each page is opening or not, each link is working or not, or if I'm hovering over any text, is it changing its color or not, if my mouse cursor is uh, hovering over a link, does that change or not. So that level of testing, that is upper level, it's just the UI level. So that comes under exploratory testing. Okay, and lastly, what is black box testing is, you are just given certain number of inputs, that this is the input data that you want to generate uh, users out of. So you are given uh, a number of names with their addresses and everything, and you just have to go on the application and just save it using the user creation page. So that is called black boxing. While in case of white box testing, you are knowing the code. So in that part, you'll go to UI, you create the user, you'll click on save, and then you'll go to DB. You will go to database, and there you can check if I whatever I saved in my UI, is that present in my database or not. So you know the code behind, that is white box testing. And black box testing, you don't know any code behind, you just check on the outer level. So what uh, all what I was trying to explain here is, these level of testing are different levels which are associated with each of the STLC cycle. So every time you have a designing phase or implementation phase, that time you'll have low level testing. In testing phase, where you have test executions, then there you'll have all the uh, functional testing and regression testing. Automation testing comes in test execution. And when you have the final report for client, that was acceptance testing, At that moment, you deploy it to an environment where you will do exploratory testing and black box testing. Okay, so this way you will be able to achieve a little agile methodology while working in SDLC, right? Now, when we are saying that you want to work in agile, or you want to have all these processes continuous, so that time you require three amigos. Three amigos is um, agile and DevOps culture. Three amigos is nothing but you have three entities: business analyst, product owner, or client, who would be giving you all the requirements; developer, who would be working on the scope of how to develop or apply all the logic to get the requirements that have been specified by business analyst; and tester, what would he or she would do is they will again collaborate with developer and business analyst to understand the application on more basic level, so that all of them are in sync and have the same clarity about the product that they are working on. So to achieve that, these three entities, like three amigos, business analyst, developer, and tester, they need to have all the meetings, all the ceremonies that you say before any deployment. They need to have to be in sync, so that we have an effective product development. Okay, so that's the first step. Then once you are ready with all the documentations, and you are thorough with the cycles, how the product would be developed and how it would be tested, now the final thing comes here is DevOps cycle. So whatever I explained till now, it is represented in this DevOps cycle that is being presented right now. So there's a BA. BA is nothing but a person who is directly working with client, who has all the information about the product. He would give the requirement. And what are user stories here? So there's the requirement to build this application which has 5 pages. Okay, so that is the whole requirement. But how can we achieve to develop it in faster and effective way? So they'll divide that functionality in smaller features. And what are those features called? They are called user stories. So there would be a user story for login page. There would be a user story for home page. There would be a user story for user creation, logout, or saving or displaying the saved data. So they'll have different user stories for each feature that inculcates in the creation of whole application. Okay. At the same time, there would be QA working, and they will generate scripts as per the user stories. Okay, so they will both work together. And as I said earlier, we have multiple people, multiple developers, multiple testers working on single functionality. So they'll be dumping their code in one location, and they would be merging it somewhere. So what is that location? That is version controlling. Okay, version controlling is the continuous integration. If you see here, I have written that whenever a developer commits the code,
Just a minute, guys. It looks like our expert is having some connectivity issues. We are on the way to contact her. Please stay tuned.
Yes, so we can continue now.
Yeah. Is my screen visible for DevOps cycle?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. Sorry for the interruption, guys. Okay, so what I was saying, achieve a parallel working environment with different entities like your business analysts, developers, and your QA guy, tester. Every everybody is in place, and they are trying upon scenarios and deploying your code from various locations to one single location. So deploying or uploading your code in one location and then merging it, that is called version controlling, and that is helpful to be achieved using Jenkins or Azure DevOps or GitLab. I have provided links at the end of my presentation, which would be helpful for you to at least start with whatever I am explaining it to you. Okay. Um, the second thing that we want to do is to test your application. When your application is available in version control, it is built and deployed by operations team. Okay, so this is where SDET, what my profile is, comes into picture. We are responsible for creation of test scripts and then building up our code and deploying it in the QA environment. So we have total minimum two environments that play important role, is that whatever code that has been developed from developer, so that is being placed in QA environment where all the various types of testing are carried out. Once those testing are carried out and those are being reported, only then it would be deployed to production environment for the users to use. So this whole cycle is repeatable from this phase. So we have this testing phase, so it would again go to developer here, and it would be repeated until my tests are being passed. So as I said here, if the test fail, the build is rejected and the developer is notified. So when this fails, it would again go to developer. He'll code the new enhancement. He would put in version controlling on that. Our automated scripts would be run. Once that is done, then it is built and deployed again. So this is a continuous process. So the process that I currently work in is bi-weekly. So every weeks we have deployment on QA, where we test all the features in high, medium, low level. When everything we report it to the client, or how continually we is all about your application that you or tools that you're using. So if you're using Azure DevOps, so we are currently using Azure Dev. Every step that we have, for every step from creating user stories to creating bugs, then creating test scripts, version controlling, build, and every, all these phases are maintained in one, and in this one tool we have all the um, entities, that is your client, your product owner, your developer, and QA. They all can access this tool, and in the same they have a continuous feedback from client at every stage of this cycle. A communication level on from the company front. So like you're using Skype or you're using Microsoft Teams. So these are, the that are required communication purpose. So every have certain communication software installed in the all these with the client and developer, and everybody would collaborate there at each and every step, so that there is minimum bugs reported before it is deployed to production for the users to test. Okay, so so there are things that I explained here. One is continuous integration, then there is continuous testing, and third is continuous delivery. Okay, these three categories or features or terminologies, whatever you consider, makes a DevOps cycle continuous and giving us a fast and efficient way of delivering products. Okay, so this is one. Then once you understood this DevOps cycle, right? So this was all theory basis. Okay, now when you talk uh, about it technically, so every time I explain it to you, you might be thinking that she is going with the theory. How would we understand this? We haven't worked in any of these things, and how can she expect anything that we would be able to learn this so quickly? So I was just giving some examples. So the thing we talked about version control, yeah, the same thing is source control. It just has separate terminologies for separate people. So source control and version control is nothing but used for intention purpose of your code. Okay, so you have the developer. He would commit his changes using whether it is Git or Visual Studio. These are tools. They do the same work of once that is version control is C systems. What is CI system? Again, it is caching. They are the which that. So whenever you have a solution, the project to work upon, you create a solution .sln file, right? So these are the projects that you would be continuously working upon, and when you're with the code completion, you build the code. When you build the code, you whether there are any if you are able to see any code issues or bugs or you won't be going ahead for deployment, right? So what these CI systems do is they will build whatever is stored in Git repository or Visual. Okay, then comes ALM. What is ALM? These are the project management. So like I shared previously, so there are certain bugs. Are you able to see my screen? Oh, I'm sorry for this.
Happens sometime. Technology, left us with no options, so definitely we can continue.
Yeah, yeah. I won't take much of a time right now. I've just two more slides to show out.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
Definitely, why not?
Yeah, yeah. So once you have this code ready in source control and it does not have any issues while building the code, then it would be deployed for further build and tests. And every time we have tests by QA engineer, we had continuous feedback using what that we already discussed about, like all the communication tools like Teams or Skype, like that. Okay, and ALM, Jira software, Smart Bear, these are the tools that would be required for project management purpose. What is project management? So every progress that we do, that we discussed previously, the user stories and bugs. So each of these little features are given a separate ID or identification for each of the story in certain tool, and on the basis of that you have um, assignments like this functionality is been assigned to Hia, or is this functionality has been assigned to Rudra. So that ways every team has been given a responsibility on certain features, and that is visible through all the project management tools. Okay, and when your code is available with you, when your application is available with you, then you are able to test it. And how can you test an application? Either it can be Selenium, either it can be any other tool. Since Selenium is basically used because it is an open source, it is highly available or collaborating with any language that you can remember. So each and every language, whether it is Python or C Sharp or Java or anything, Selenium has collaboration with that. So each and every time you try to automate certain requirements, UI requirements basically, that is being achieved with Selenium. So Selenium again is a tool for UI automation frameworks. Okay, and for deployment purposes also, CI systems, that is Jenkins and Azure DevOps, those are helpful. And as I said earlier, in DevOps you have three entities, and these three entities need to collaborate continuously so that they can give continuous delivery. So the ultimate goal that we have in DevOps, whether it is cycle for development, whether it is cycle for testing, each and everything needs to be really continuous. It needs to be at a certain level of sprint wise. When you say sprint, it is just a number of user stories that would be deployed for testing purpose, and then for the users to use it. Okay, so this is the second part of DevOps. Then when you have all the processes in place, when you have all the entities in place, the entities means developer, QA and BA. These are the entities. This is the cycle and the tools. So when everything is in place and the code works fine, what do you do next? You deploy the code on a environment, and then you check with the business or your in your acceptance testing. You give your business team to test out your application at certain level. For that we use different types of matrix also. So if I have deployed my application in production and now it's available to all the users, now you want to see if it is live, it is working correct or not. So uh, for example, you have uploaded your application wherein you want to create multiple users and then do certain things in that website and then log out. If there are a large number of users um, continuously trying to log in and utilize your application, how can they be tracked? So they can be tracked using dashboards. So you have response times, memory and CPU utilization. What is response time? So if you click on login button, you have given username, password, and you click on login button. So how much time does it take to switch to the second screen after logging into the system? So that is response time. Memory is like you're trying to save a user somewhere. So there's a database that would be having all the data that is being given input from the website. So you'll track that memory also, that how much of space is that using, how much do we need to add more space in my database so that more and more users are able to use my application. And these are certain types of categories or metrics is that you can identify if your application is going to fail in any future occurrences, in any future time. You get an additional information from these charts and metrics. So all these dashboards are created for certain level of tracking purpose for the progress, as well as the monitoring of your application, if it's working correctly or not. Okay, so these things can also be included in your CI systems, mainly in Azure DevOps. So Azure DevOps is a tool um, which is now able to which is able to be used as source control as well. Then it can deploy your code as well. So currently we are using Azure DevOps, and in that, one tool is responsible for um, having my all my code in saved into it, having all the code built into it. Then once the build is completed, I can deploy it in a location that I want, in a server that I want. So everything that is being worked upon, that can also be managed as a project management tool as well. So every feature that I'm working on, is it completed, is it not completed, is it in testing mode, all these can be managed using our dashboards. So these three are general dashboards that I have mentioned, but there are n number of dashboards that you can customize yourself for your tracking your progress for the application development. Then there are test results. Then you have code coverages. Code coverages means that whatever test scripts that you have built, is it testing all of my application, or it's just testing one of the features in my application. Code coverage specifies those features on the feature level. And then comes the release test results. So every time you have a bug reported, or if there's no bug and it's deployed in environment, you have a test result given to your client. With that test result or matrix, client is able to identify, is this okay, whatever I same code has been developed and I'm happy with it. I don't want any other enhancements, and go ahead and make it available for users to get in touch with the application in real time. So that is release test result. Okay. Now I know I have overwhelmed with so much of topic today, but um, whenever we are trying to learn new things, okay, we have a tendency to write it down somewhere, right? So whenever you are in a class for the first time, you try to jot down every important point that is being discussed or that is new to you. So same way, you have documentation in development life cycle and testing life cycle as well. So you need to have proper documentation in each and every phase of your cycle, whether it is developer cycle or it is tester cycle. You need to document it. You need to make sure that if you are not available to do this work, someone else can read this document easily, understand it, and replicate the same work that you were doing previously. Okay, so it's very important to have proper documentation in every cycle, or in general. You need to have proper documentation in place. Okay, so the first main thing is about the business, that explains why you're building this application, what are your problems, what are clients goal, and how can you achieve that, and in how much time are you required to achieve this. This all should be documented in one place. Then which are the technologies that you would be utilizing, or which are the ones that client has suggested. these should be in place so that if a new person comes into your developing team or testing team, they are understood from the basic that what is this project is all about and what I am supposed to work on. So that is available to them, and they are easily able to cope up with the environment that is already running so fast. So for a person to get included in a very fast environment, you need to have proper documentation in place for that. Next is definition of done. Okay, so for that I'll tell you this. So whenever you had a user story, you tested it, you built the code, and you deployed it in the environment, and then again you tested and reported it. So in this all thing, you were trying to achieve something that was um, implied by the client. So if a user story is working as expected, so you need to mention it somewhere that if it is working in this certain way, then this task can be marked as done. Only then it can be marked as done. So that type of level of documentation is also very important. Next is definition of ready. So definition of ready comes into place when you have proper test results in place. When you have proper release test results, you have proper dashboards in place, you do not have any issues occurring in near future or currently. So these are certain type of requirements that should be fulfilled so that you can say yes, all these user stories have been completed, now they don't have any issues, they are ready for the users to utilize it. So that is called definition of ready. Okay, so all these documentation are very important to have a process continuous. Okay, so DevOps is, I'll say this again and again, is all about streamlining these processes with the entities in the development or testing lifecycle so that you have everything working continuously without any failures, without any blockages. If these documentation matrices, tools, or your cycle, or your entities, and the level of understanding on each and every testing phase, if this is understood and properly documented, this is what you achieve. So this is the exact manner how DevOps is working. Is a continuous process. It starts with planning, then coding, build, test, then it's release, deployed in QA or production, then you operate. Operate is nothing but operate and monitor are nothing but you're creating dashboards and matrix so that your client is able to see the changes and the progress, and your application is continuously giving latest features in minimum time. So this is how we achieve a continuous delivery using DevOps. So these are certain number of tools that are currently being used in IT industry. So I can't even I can't say I know all these tools that are being present over here. If anybody wants to take the screenshot and take into account that okay, I at least need to have this knowledge. So I'll give you one or two tools that you can start learning DevOps from. So first, if you're a little interested in testing, then you can go ahead with Selenium and JUnit. JUnit is for Java, same way we have NUnit for C#. Okay, then you have Visual Studio and different types of IDEs that you can develop. Okay, then you have GitHub or GitLab. These are the ones that are responsible for integration, merging your code. Okay, then you have these project management tools. So each tool that I'm displaying over here, each tool has separate certifications or separate learning curve. Okay, so you can start for one thoroughly, or you can have at least basic knowledge of these terminologies that I have provided to you right now. If you have these skills, basic skills in your resume, that would be a really help for you. Okay, so when you build up your resume, if you have certain number of skills present in your resume and certain level of tools that you are aware of, at least you have basic knowledge of those tools, that would be really helpful in boosting your career ahead. Okay, and how can you do that? I have a list of URLs here which I used when I was learning Selenium and automation and all these CI tools, integration tools, and everything. So, whenever you are working anywhere, just try to learn or capture new things that enhances your skills. Okay, so I don't say that you start learning or have something in her, but you should start with what you are trying to achieve. At the end of the day, you should have knowledge of at least something. You shouldn't be blank when you come out of your college or come out of this bubble of your learning. You'll have to face the real people, and you'll have to face real vivas. So when you are getting out of college, everything is very verbal. You'll have to have a clarity in all the topics that you want to work on. You should have at least the knowledge where you're going for interview. If an interview place is required for only Java, so learn Java thoroughly, or things that they require in a user, in an employee. So you go with that flow and try to learn in at least one skill in a month or so, or a week or so. I'm not sure how to frame that, but you need to learn, that's for sure. And it's not like college is completed, so you don't have to learn. You have to learn at every stage of your life. I hope I was helpful in any way to you guys. That's it from my side. Yeah. Rudra, you
Yes,
can
ma'am.
take
Thank
ahead
you.
from there.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. That was a very good time. And thank you so much, Hia ma'am, for your valuable time and for giving us such an amazing and informative session on DevOps. It was indeed very useful to us. And yes, it was a great experience we all had throughout this webinar. And ma'am, our viewers had some question,
Yeah.
but we don't have much time, so we'll mail you the question and you
Yeah.
can revert back. But one question I would like to ask is that what is the future of
Okay.
DevOps? Like, where do you see the demand for DevOps engineer in next 5 to 10 years?
DevOps is future. So everything now is all about DevOps. Um, when you say future itself says that you want to have latest technologies as early as possible. So that is only achievable through DevOps. So DevOps is the future. So there's a lot of demand in this technology. Either it is for development, either it is for testing, either it is just for deployments. So you need to learn DevOps a little, a basic, so that you are able to start it. So that is future. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. Now I would like to invite Mr. Ankit Pandya, Training and Placement Officer, Power University, to give a thanking note. Yes, sir. Over to you.
Yeah, so thanks a lot, Rudra, for having this particular moderation which you did, and I definitely would like to thank our expert for the day, Miss Hia Jain. Here you actually have shared a lot many important details from which our students, they can at least kickstart having the knowledge of DevOps. Along with the same, it is yet very much it was very much briefing about the concepts which they need to develop, as you said that it would be the future. And yes, being the student of IT and computers, these people need to develop this type of skills to be in the market. So yes, it would definitely help them out to understand the things further for their future or the careers. And with that, I would like to thank you here for your time which you have shared with us. And definitely we would be expecting this kind of session from you in near future as well, if time permits and if the situation are okay. We definitely would like to have you here at our university, at your university, I can say. So yes, why not? So Rudra, yes, once again, thanks to you as well. You did excellent job in moderating this session. With this, yes, here I, as Rudra said, would be sharing you certain questions which we have received. And according to that, you can revert me on that email so that I can get those answers to the students. Sure?
Sure, I'll share this PPT as well with you guys so that
Why not?
all the information that I've shared is available.
Definitely. Sure, then. So here we are ending the session. Thank you very much, Hia. Thank you very much, Rudra, and all the audience who have joined with us. Thank you to the technical team who have supported us like anything for the whole session. Thank you very much, everyone. Please take care. Bye bye.
Bye. Thanks.